Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs! Duuz-Diz-Din back again, with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously, our heroes had arrived at Stownside, with Henry earning the Ghost Badge from the gym leader Alistair, but before Casey could have her battle, Bade destroys the Stownside mural in search of wishing stars for Chairman Rose, but Rose disqualifies him from the gym challenge because of this, as he feels that Bade has no love for Galar in the way that he does. Something that, while Bade kind of reaps what he sowed on that one, it did seem a little bit extreme, and Henry took a special umbrage with the fact that it seemed like Rose didn't really take true responsibility for what Bade had done and had become. Meanwhile, after Casey had managed to overcome Alistair, he helps her find her toxicity, who was battling with a Derpy and Dracloak that Alistair catches himself. Our heroes then arrive in Lynnea, where Hop has already managed to earn the fairy badge from Opal, which was helped out by the fact that he answered Opal's question correctly, upping his stats. Unfortunately, as Henry begins his battle, he answered the question in a wrong manner that displeased Opal, so his stats of his Pokemon have been lowered, putting him in a bit of a pinch. During the battle, though, Opal announces that she'll be retiring as a gym leader as well, and she seems to have chosen Bade, having sent him a letter that he's none too interested in. But he's caught off guard as a sudden rumbling overtakes Hammerlock, where he has completed his gym challenge. What could it be? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, first we pick up with Chapter 17, Stealth, Infiltrate the Energy Plant. We pick up with Sonia racing around Hammerlock as she shouts, "That explosion just now! The energy plant is beneath Hammerlock Stadium. Did it cause an accident?" She spots a crowd of people with Bade in the middle. She goes up to him, calling out to him, though he dismissively says, "Oh, you're that lady who was with Henry's sword." Sonia reaches out a hand to shake, saying, The name's Sonia. I research Galar's legends." But Bade dismissively says, "I don't care about that. What's going on?" A voice suddenly calls out, "Please leave. Even if you're the champion, we can't let you through." This catches Sonia off guard, as we see that Leon is trying to make his way past some Pokemon League officiants. Leon tells them, "Before he left for the plant, Mr. Rose ordered us—" Oh no, the officiant says, "Before he left for the plant, Mr. Rose ordered us not to let anyone through. No matter what happened, everything is fine." But Leon tells him, "You can't know that for certain." The officiant says, "But no alarms have sounded off, and Mr. Rose hasn't contacted anyone about an emergency." Leon questions, "What if that's because he isn't able to?" The officiant says, "Even if that's the case, we haven't been instructed as to what to do in that situation." Bade suddenly calls out, "The chairman is inside the energy plant?" Although Sonia tries to shush him as not to draw attention, but Leon's attention has been taken. He turns saying, "Aren't you?" But then he's shocked as he sees Sonia. Sonia, doing a terrible job hiding behind Bade, who's obviously annoyed, says, "Yep, it's me, Sonia. Nice to see you again, Leon. How many years has it been?" "Well, I'll see you later." And she tries to go dashing off, but Leon grabs her by the arm, saying, "Hold on, would you?" But Raihan grabs him by the shoulder, saying, "Cool it, Mr. Champion." Leon calls out, "Raihan!" And Raihan says, "You on a Chewtle? Don't go around biting whatever happens to be in front of you. Hammerlock Stadium is my home ground. Leave this to me, all right? If you're worried about things having gone wrong, use your champion virtue to evacuate residents and rubberneckers. You should get a move on too, Sonia." Sonia saying, "Okay." And we see several people really fascinated by the scene. Leon says, "Sonia, I wanted to talk to you about..." But Raihan interrupts, saying, "You're the champion. Take a minute and think about how Sonia will be affected if you grab her by the arm and nag her in public." Sonia says, "Thanks, Raihan. We do have to talk about it eventually, huh?" Raihan says, "If you don't think you can handle talking to him alone, call Nessa for support or something. this guy's undefeated after all. It might be tough to get a word in. And Raihan's obviously a little bit angry about this, but their attention is suddenly grabbed as Bade is having his, what was it called again? Mintan? Oh, Hitana, there we go. Hitana levitate the Pokemon League officiants out of the way. Leon grabs him, saying, "Cut that out!" But Bade says, "Let go of me. If anything happens to the chairman..." But Raihan interrupts, saying, "You keep acting up, and this turns out to be nothing. The chairman's impression of you might get worse, you know." Hitan puts down the officiants as Sonia walks up to Bade, saying, "There's something I wanted to ask you about. The chairman secretly had you collect wishing stars, correct? Did he ever tell you what he wanted to use them for?" Bade clenches his teeth and angrily turns to her, saying, "What of it? If I don't know, what of it if he didn't tell me?" Sonia recoils, saying, "I didn't mean anything like..." And Raihan thinks on this moment and then says, Why don't you come down to the plant with me? If it doesn't matter too much to you what the chairman will think of it, I mean." Leon is shocked by this, saying, "Why are you always so quick to say things like that?" Raihan responds, saying, "I mean, he doesn't really seem cut out for helping evacuate people." Leon says, "What if his future as a trader gets ruined even more?" Raihan responds, "The Challenge Cup isn't the only place where traders can shine, you know." "Geez, you're stubborn." Bade shouts at them, saying, "Shut up! I won't go, so leave me alone." And he races off. Oh boy. It does kind of suck that everybody's kind of aware of what happened so immediately. And now it's a situation where everyone's kind of pitying him and he's pulled in so many different directions. And I think it's Raihan who says, "I'll be counting on you for guiding evacuations then." I think Leon says, "Right." And so he says, "I'll help too." Raihan makes his way to the top of, I think, a tower with his Gudra, saying, "All right, there's nowhere a troublemaker raised here can't break into." He has Gudra melt the lock to a hatch, and Raihan opens it up. Ooh. And he brings out one of my favorite Pokemon, Flygar, and has it descend inside of the plant. Raihan says to himself, "The entrance's security's gotten tighter, but they haven't changed the inspection hatch since I was a kid." As he makes his way further in, he's suddenly attacked by a, what is this again? Serena. He says, "Didn't think there'd be security," only for a Frostlass, I think, to come out behind him and try to get him as well. This causes him to plummet through a hatch, and as he makes his way onto the ground, there's Chairman Rose and Oleana, with Rose just waving, saying, "Hello, Raihan. You're late." Raihan turns, saying, "You knew? Then why?" Rose shrugs, saying, "Why did I stop people from coming in? Because not everyone's fine with rebelling like you are. Leon not coming proves that, doesn't it?" As Raihan gets up, dusting himself off, he says, "He didn't come because I stopped him." Rose tells him, "He wouldn't have come either way. He's more aware of his position as champion than anyone else. He won't do something that'll make him look like a bad influence." Raihan then asks, "So, what happened?" Rose just, in a very silly manner, says, "Failed an experiment." Raihan says, "Don't you tee-hee me." But Rose says, "But the electricity is still up and we're unhurt, aren't we?" Raihan looks near a nearby window, saying, "What kind of experiment were you even running?" Rose turns to Oleana, saying, "I can tell him, can't I, Oleana?" Oleana says, "If you like." Rose explains, "You know how Galar's electricity is produced. We take the Galar particles gathered by the tower above us, then convert them into power." Raihan says, "Of course." Rose explains, "What would you do if I told you that those particles were limited, and we'd be in serious trouble if we didn't have enough of them?" Raihan's shocked and says, "You mean there'd be a massive blackout?" Rose says it'd be lovely if it were only a blackout, but there's a possibility that civilization will crumble, meaning the end for the Galar region. Raihan shouts, When would that happen?" And Rose says, 1,000 years from now." Raihan is taken aback and then pats Rose on the back, saying, "Man, don't scare me like that." Rose questions, "You're relieved? Why?" Raihan shrugs it off, saying, "I mean, it's out of my lifetime." Rose then asks, But what about the Pokemon? Raihan thinks on this, as Rose then responds, there's a Pokemon that said to only awaken for 7 days once every 1,000 years. Is he talking about Jirachi? When that Pokemon awakens, will the living world be able to be preserved as it is? Raihan responds, I mean, someone else might be able to solve that in the time we have until then. Rose responds, I can't just stand around twiddling my thumbs while knowing of the danger approaching us. Raihan then points out, is that why you were having that kid collect wishing stars? Rose responds, you really do live up to your title as a gym leader. You cut no corners with your research. That's exactly right. I'm trying to find a way to generate electricity without using Galar particles. So I used the wishing stars and did an experiment. Raihan responds, and you failed? Rose says, keep it between us, would you? It'll make me look uncool, please. Jokes aside, I would still like you to keep it a secret, though. You understand why, don't you? Raihan sighs, saying, because you don't want to cause anyone unnecessary worry. I get that if this were about some giant meteorite crashing down in 10 days. Oh, referencing that, huh? But we're talking 1,000 years from now, aren't we? I think people would trust you more if you explained honestly instead of hiding it. Then, and you'd be able to get more ideas for replacements, too. Very sensible. Rose seems to dismiss this, saying thank you. For now, let's hurry and announce that this accident was nothing to worry about. Eliana, please prepare a speech and adjust my schedule. Eliana types away at her phone, saying right away. Raihan then makes for the exit, saying, I'm going back to the surface then. And Rose responds, sorry to have worried you. As the elevator door shuts, Rose and Oleana turn to make their way. As Kaparaja wheels the cart with the wishing stars behind them, Rose asks Oleana, he doesn't believe us, does he? Oleana responds, no. It's like, yeah, he knows something's up. In privacy, Raihan responds, you can never tell how much what that skeevy old man says is true. This might call for bringing in the real rebel. Real rebel? Oh, I know who that is. It took me a second. I was like, who's that? Who's that silhouette? A Mawile? And it's just like, oh, wait. I know who that is. All those wishing stars piled into a huge bowl. What kind of experiment was he running? It looked like an offering, as we see Rose and Oleana standing before Eternatus. Meanwhile, we then cut back to the Balloon Leah Stadium, where the announcer says, Gym Leader Opal has shocked Balloon Leah Stadium with a declaration of her retirement. There are concerns about who will succeed her, but let's turn our attention back to her match against challenger Henry. Gigantamax Alcremie versus Dynamax Surfetch. Gotta get Surfetch. Gotta wiggle him in here. There we go. The announcer says, as a fighting type, Surfetch is at a huge disadvantage. They've already taken damage from G-Max Finale. But if they can defeat Alcremie, they'll be in the clear. Okay, I was trying to figure out what the attack was. Henry has Surfetch use Max Steel Spike. The announcer says a Steel-type Max move. It's super effective, but with its attack power reduced, it fails to be the finishing blow. Alcremie is unfazed and unleashes another G-Max Finale. And as the rain of blasts come down upon Surfetch, Surfetch does what he can to block the attack. The announcer says, Surfetch has managed to block a few cream missiles with its shield, but their lines of fire are too unpredictable to avoid them all. That's a lot of damage, and with that move, Alcremie is healing itself. Yeah, I don't actually remember how much of a struggle I had with this fight, because naturally I answered the question correctly, so I didn't have the issues going through. Henry says to himself, it attacks and recovers at the same time. Is the base move Draining Kiss? If we can't take it down in one shot, there's no way we can win. He commands Surfetch to use Max Knuckle. Opal then says, oh, recovering your attack power over worrying about the move's effects? You must be pretty desperate. Marvin then says, if it makes it through this attack, Alcremie will have used 3 moves, so it'll go back to normal. In that case, it'll take more damage from max moves like Max Steel Spike, so it'll have to have a better chance of knocking it out in one go. That's what he's depending on. But to do that, they've got to be able to survive the cream missiles. If only they'd stay still like your bubbles, Sniffler, then our training might have been more helpful. The training was to learn how to slip through all the bubbles and slash them without getting soaked. They weren't just fast. They were able to instantly memorize the bubble's position and course they need to follow. Wait, then wouldn't that work the other way too? Opal then says, I've got more challenges after you. If we don't get this over with, I won't have as long of a break. Henry then says, Lancelot, tell me what you've learned. As Opal unleashes another G-Max finale, Sir Fetch readies himself and manages to block the attack completely this time. Henry standing there like a G. The announcer says, amazing! It used its leak lance and leaf shield to cut through all the globs of cream and hit them back. Opal then says, you memorized the missile path after that second attack to know when and where to counter. Impressive. Alchemy transforms back into its normal form. As the announcer says, Alchemy has reverted to its normal form. Challenger Henry is still Dynamaxing. And Henry commands Lancelot to use Max Steel Strike. Sir Fetch unleashes the attack, which instantly downs Alchemy. The announcer says, Alchemy is unable to battle. Challenger Henry wins. Opal looks upon Alchemy, saying, I know it's a given since it returned to its normal size, but I hate getting knocked out in one shot. Did you have your Sir Fetch hold something? We see that indeed Sir Fetch has something around its leak sword. Opal says, an expert belt, huh? That certainly is one way to make up for lowered attack power. He then says, you failed. Henry is taken aback by this, but as Opal walks off, she says to him, don't mind what I said. It's just a matter of my own tastes. You've passed this gym's challenge. Good work. Marvin makes his way over to Henry as he exits the stadium, saying, Sword, where'd you get an expert belt? Henry says, Sonia gave it to me. It was back when we went treasure hunting in Turffield, remember? Marvin says, so that was the treasure back then. Professor Magnolia approaches saying, congratulations, Sword. I'd hate to rush our departure, but Henry says, did something happen? Magnolia holds out a pad saying, take a look. As Henry reads it, he says, trouble at the energy plant. Magnolia then says, yes, and one more thing. And Henry is surprised as a report reads, Dynamaxing outside of the power spots. Panic ensues when a giant Dracovish appears. And Henry says, Dynamaxing? In the Route 9 tunnel? Oh, yeah, I remember that. Well, too much is going on. And next we cut over to Chapter 18. Chomp, it's Dracovish. You see the report of the rampaging Dracovish. Henry looks at the pad saying, Dynamaxing outside of power spots? Marvin says, is that even possible, Professor? Magnolia says, as far as I've learned from my own research, it's never been observed. I've never seen it or heard of anything about it, but there's one way it could work. You know it well, don't you, Marvin? Marvin's shocked, saying, oh, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Dynamax simulator. Come to think of it, where is she? And we see up on a big monitor that she's battling with her Toxtricity. The announcer says, Challenger Casey has sent out Toxtricity. According to the information we've just received, her Toxtricity is Challenger Casey's former missing Terra, and they reunited in Glimwood Tangle. Henry says, oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. brought the SS Magnolia out to the Route 9 tunnel and used her simulator. But what for? Henry questions, to train with Terra since they reunited? Or maybe she just wanted to startle some people again? I don't think that seems likely. Magnolia says, not to people who know her like we do. But if she ends up under suspicion, that's an awfully pitiful argument. Marvin then questions, when did S.H.I.E.L.D. get to the stadium? Does she have an alibi? Suddenly a voice says, we could verify that for you. Marvin says, Marnie! And Team Yell. Oh, Marnie and her. Morpeko. Oh, so Marnie's the one who ended up battling Bay. Marnie explains, when I took on the gym challenge at Sterlingside, I wanted to battle with Alistair, but he was absent, so I had to battle Bay and her fighting-type Pokemon, which was tough because we weren't strong against them. When the match ended, I heard that Team Yell had headed off to Glimwood Tangle to get back at Alistair for being absent. When I hurriedly chased after them, I think this is one of the Team Yell members saying, Monty showed up when Alistair and the girl were fighting us back. And we see Casey and Alistair watching with Alistair's Gengar. The other grunt says, she scolded us to make us shrink. Her angry Morapeka beat us up too. Marty then says, after that, all 5 of us stuck together until we registered to battle at Lynnea Stadium. The male grunt says, we want Marty to have as little competition as possible, so this is extremely solid coming from us. The female grunt says, there's no one you can trust more. Henry says, Professor. Magnolia says, right, let's watch for Shield's match to end, then go investigate the Route 9 tunnel. Meanwhile, Casey, battling against a Gigantamax Alcremie, says, alright, Tara, we're gonna Dynamax too. Take that! But it's not Dynamax that she sees, as her Toxtricity has Gigantamax, much to Casey's surprise. She says, Tara, you can Gigantamax! Alrighty then, G-Max Stun Shock! And she unleashes a devastating move against Alcremie. The announcer says, oh, Gigantamax Alcremie's been poisoned! Did it get poisoned by G-Max Stun Shock? Or did it get soaked in that 1,000,000 liters of poison that gushed out from Toxtricity's internal stores? Either way, Fairy-type Alcremie's taken major damage. Opal has Alcremie use G-Max Finale. But Casey says, try me, as Toxtricity just tanks the attack. The announcer says, even after all the missiles hits, Toxtricity has little damage, but Casey seems to be shocked by something. As Opal says, it isn't a real Pokemon battle if you can predict how it'll go based on types and capabilities. Oh, geez. Casey calls out to her Toxtricity as the announcer says, Toxtricity is confused from taking all those high-calorie missiles. It attacks itself, and it's down. Challenger Casey has been eliminated, failing at her 5th gym challenge. Opal walks away saying, you fail. Oh, wow, I wasn't actually expecting Casey to lose. Hey, so she's just out? No way. So she's completely out? What? Really? I don't know how I feel about that. Then again, it's a good punishment for her getting a little too cocky, but man, we pick up on them traveling on Route 7 as Casey is reeling, saying, I was so close. My gym challenge is over. I wanted to stay on TV a little longer so I could find Peta, Mega, and Giga. But Henry holds up the sign with at least 2 of them crossed out, saying, I'll keep asking for information on sightings in your place. Casey says, thank you, Sword. While Magnolia says, sorry to bother you while you're down, Shield, but Casey says, you want me to investigate the Route 9 tunnel, right? Gotcha! We then pick up at the Route 9 tunnel entrance, where we see Henry and Marvin in some tall grass. Marvin whispers, I feel like hiding the car and sneaking around like this is to investigate only makes us more suspicious. We see Henry in a disguise saying, yeah, so I disguised myself so it wouldn't matter much if we got caught. What do you think? Marv says, I think you'll be alright. Casey then radios in saying, Lord, once you get in front of the tunnel, turn the antenna towards the inside. Henry whispers, right. Marvin then questions, how is it? Casey says, okay, it's here. Oh, we see her in a disguise too. It's kind of weird seeing her in that outfit. They're faint, but I've detected traces of energy. What happened here? It wasn't a hologram. It was real, genuine Dynamaxing. Magnolia says, in other words, this place, which isn't a power spot, must have received some sort of power and temporarily become one. That's the only way I think it could have been possible. Casey says, do you think it had anything to do with the accident at the energy plant? Magnolia says, I can't really say. Chairman Rose did deny any and all ties during an interview, but it's uncertain whether he made those statements after a proper investigation here. Casey then says, Sword, Marvin, is anyone else investigating that? As they peek inside, Henry says, a voice says, it ran over there. As we see a Steelix beating up on the Dracovish. Marvin whispers, it's a Dracovish. Henry says, is he getting chased by rubberneckers? One of the rubberneckers says, he can't use his high speed all tied up like this. The Dracovish bites on Steelix. Marvin says, no, it won't do any good to bite into a body so big, not one made of steel. But as Dracovish gnaws on Steelix, Steelix ultimately gives up. Marvin is shocked, saying, Steelix really yielded to that bite? Henry shows off his Pokedex, saying, Marvin, look, powerful jaws. As the Pokedex reads, Dracovish, the fossil Pokemon. Powerful legs and jaws made it the apex predator of its time. Its own overhunting of its prey was what drove it to extinction. One of the rubbernecks says, if we can't catch it, all orders are to dispose of it. Henry and Marvin are shocked. Marvin saying, dispose of it? No. Marvin gets out of the grass, revealing his location. Henry questioning Marvin. Marvin brings out his, Drizzler? Yeah, Drizzler. It says, I'll catch it. Sniffler, tearful look. And Drizzler brings out a whole heaping of tears and sends out his water mines, throwing them out. The people are perplexed, saying, what? As a torrent of water comes all over the place, causing everyone to cry, yelling, my eyes, it burns! Oh, God, I know that feeling. Just that burning, crying sensation. Oh, it's the worst. And I love Drizzler looking so pleased with itself there. One of the people finally look through the tears, saying, huh? It's gone, noticing the Dracovish is gone. Now in Marvin's possession. Wow, Marvin actually got another Pokemon. Huh, okay. Marvin says to it, you're all beat up. And in the news and on video, it was agitated and had been slamming itself into the tunnel walls. It must have been scary to suddenly become gigantic like that. I'll let you escape somewhere safe. Are there more Dracovish living on Route 8? Buddy, about that. Casey says, there aren't any living anywhere. Marvin questions, nowhere at all? Casey says, because Drac... What the heck? What happened? Suddenly Casey's eyes go dead for a moment, and then it's like she reboots. And she more quietly says, Dracovish isn't a Pokemon that exists in the wild. Weird. Why didn't she... It's weird that she said that normally. He wasn't yelling for a second. Henry turns, saying, you remembered Shield. Casey says, huh? Marvin questions, what do you mean? Henry explains, saying, you remember when we first met? You told me all about the Pokemon in the wild, without looking at anything for reference. But once you lost your team, you stopped being able to recall what you knew about Pokemon. Oh, that's the memory she lost. Because I was wondering, because they brought up memory loss, but she seemed to have so much of her memories, so I wasn't sure what memory she actually lost, or if that plotline was dropped, but it was her memories of Pokemon knowledge. Casey says, really? Henry says, I thought maybe you'd locked away all that knowledge so you wouldn't forget the Pokemon you lost. Marvin says, I see. So now that you've got Kilo and Peta back, the knowledge is starting to come back too. Casey says, I didn't even notice. You should have told me, Sword. Henry says, I thought it would be a little cruel considering how you'd forgotten that you'd forgotten. Casey then says, I still kind of remember what happened after that loud bang, though. Henry says, I can't either. Marvin smiles, saying, you might be able to once you get your last 3 Pokemon back. Casey says, you're right. Marvin, looking at the Dracovish, says, what should I do with Dracovish, though? Casey says, why don't you just add it to your team? Henry says, if you're both okay with it, I wouldn't think there should be any problem. Marvin looks at Dracovish, who seems to be happy, saying, are you okay with it? Then. From now on, your name is... Okay, what is the English translation call it? Oh, just Draco. Alright, let's treat those wounds of yours. Come on out. But Casey shouts, no! The trailer house is only 2 meters tall and Dracovish is 2.3 meters. So as Dracovish comes out, it just rattles the whole entire place. And it's especially funny because the idea of certain Pokemon indoors very rarely comes out. But this causes such a commotion, it throws Magnolia off while she's driving, and she comes to a screeching halt. Outside, she chastises everyone, telling them, I've told you before not to let any big Pokemon out inside of the trailer house. All 3 of the kids say, we're sorry. Meanwhile, the people who were chasing Dracovish are apologizing to Oleana, saying our sincerest apologies. Oleana, looking at her phone, says, there's nothing we can do. I'll report to Chairman Rose that we failed both in capture and disposal. Eric, take the team and stand by in window. The people put on officiant shades, saying, yes, ma'am. Oh, we pick up with Marvin riding on the back of Dracovish, with Marvin saying, oh, wow, The Pokedex said you could run at 60 kilometers per hour, but I think you might be a little faster, don't you, Draco? Casey calls out from the car as everyone else is falling behind, saying, Dracovash can't breathe on land, so you should either have it get back in his ball or fall along in the river. Marvin says, okay. As Casey then says to Magnolia, I had no idea Marvin was such a rascal. Rascal. Magnolia then says, when a proud child isn't treated in a way that matches their pride in an unfamiliar place or by unfamiliar people, there are cases where they end up becoming reclusive or shy. It isn't strange for someone one's more rambunctious side to come out around someone trusted or someone who treats them well. It isn't a bad thing. It can help bring out growth and even some remarkable abilities. Henry then says, I'm surprised too. He had Snifflin make a makeshift tear gas and water bomb out of its bubbles. Casey says, it's all thanks to you. Henry questions, what do you mean? Casey says, weren't you helping Marvin gain some confidence by pretending to have him help you train? Why don't you make him your gear-making apprentice? And Henry just kind of thinks on this as Marvin waves at them, calling out, Sword, you've got a customer. She brought some gear she wants you to do maintenance on. She thought you'd be getting here soon, so... And we see that it's Melanie with some kind of object saying, I'd like for you to temper this ice cane. Could you please do that? Casey is shocked as Magnolia says, my, if it isn't Melanie. Marvin says, you know her? And Casey jumping up and down says, she's a gym leader in Circhester. Marvin turns saying, you mean the gym Sword's challenging next? But as Henry takes the ice cane, he turns deadly serious saying, I'll do it. And Melanie then brings up a picture of Henry saying, thank you, but are you really Henry Sword? And they take off their disguises. Henry saying, oh, I forgot I was in disguise. Casey saying, me too. I was kind of wondering about that after a point. I'm just like, y'all are still in disguises. Why are you still disguised? Alright, and the last chapter we'll be looking at for this video is chapter 19, Crunch, Snowy Battle. Nice little picture, cover page with Gordy on it. Everybody in their snowy outfits. Casey looking particularly cute too. Almost looks like Crown Tundra outfits, honestly. What awaits on the Steam Driftway? Oh, the Hero's Bath, yeah! Oh wow, to already be this far along too. It's kind of weird to me that Casey only has only so many of her Pokemon though. You pick up at the Circhester Hero's Bath, where Casey calls out as her Pokemon are chilling in the water. Hero, Terra, how is it? Does it feel good? Oh wow, Magnolia without her coat. That's kind of weird to me. As Casey watches with her Raboot. He says, I'm so jealous. I want to get it too. As Magnolia watches and says, the legends say this place healed the hero's battle fatigue, but now only Pokemon can get in it. Raboot can't, but it still seems satisfied even with just the steam. Apparently there's a large public bathhouse at Hotel Aeonia where we're staying tonight. Be patient until Sword and Marvin arrive, okay? Casey then says, I can't believe he actually tempering a future opponent's gear. I can't believe Melanie asked for him to either. As Magnolia says, it's because Circhester Gym has 2 gym leaders, just like at Stowonside. If Sword chooses not to challenge Melanie, the problem is as good as solved. That, and didn't Melanie say that the Pokemon that uses the gear won't even come out of its ball? Even if Sword chooses to challenge Melanie, and it won't be as though he actually give her any sort of advantage. We then cut over to Steam Driftway, where we see a Mr. Rhyme confined to its Pokeball. Marvin looks at it saying, this Pokemon that Melanie trusted us with, it's called Mr. Rhyme, right? He's looking through a book saying, it's Mr. Mime's evolved form. I don't recognize this Mr. Mime, though. Original form, this must be its Galarian form. But why do you think it started holding up in its ball? As Henry examines the cane, he says, it probably has to do with its ice cane having broken. Marvin says, huh? It's broken? Henry points to a seam in the cane saying, look, see this crack? Marvin says, you're right. As Henry looks towards Mr. Rhyme, he says, it's a mark that got left as of putting it back together when it broke before. Melanie asked me to temper it, but I'll have to repair it, too. She probably thinks it'll get Miss Rhyme to come out of its bowl. They then head out into the snowfall, Henry saying, "We're getting some pretty good snow, huh? Let's start by having the cane soak up the snow to completely fill in its cracks. Miss Rhyme makes his cane by hiding the coldness that its body emits. Natural snow is the closest substitute. Marvin, hold the end of the cane. Could you turn it towards you when I give the signal?" Marvin takes it and says, "Like this?" Henry says, "Right. That way we can get an even coat of snow. There we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Marvin says, "It's gotten really thick." Henry says, "We still got a ways to go. We'll let this snow set, then scrape off what doesn't stick, and we'll keep repeating the process." Marvin says, "Wow." Henry continues on explaining, saying, "Then, once we've thickened and extended the cane through several rotations, we'll reforge it into the best shape for Mr. Rhyme's height, arm length, and handling habits." Marvin says, "I see. So we can't finish the job unless Mr. Rhyme comes out of its ball." Henry then says, "I'll call you when it's time for the next round, so go ahead into the tent." Marvin questions, "What about you?" Henry says, "I can't move until the snow finishes setting, so I'll be staying right here." Which, dang, I hope you're ready to be cold, man. But a figure behind Marvin sneezes, which shocks him. He turns saying, "Who's there?" "Oh, Gordy. Gordy, why are you dressed like that, man?" He has a overcoat and jacket, but it's just like, dude, Gordy, I need you to dress a little bit more for the climate. Gordy says, "Sorry to interrupt. I'm Gordy, one of Sir Chester's gym leaders," he says as he pats snow off of his body. "He's wearing shorts in the snow. Friggin' animal." Gordy approaches Henry saying, "You're a gym challenger, right? Henry's sword, was it? I heard the other gym leaders ask you to do some maintenance on some gear. Since it looks like you won't be formally challenging me, I'm here to challenge you to an outdoor match." Henry says, oh no, it's still Gordy saying, "But from the looks of it, you're going to be busy for a while, huh?" Henry says, "Just because I accepted Melanie's request doesn't mean that I've decided to challenge her." Gordy, seeing an opportunity, questions, "Don't you want to battle against someone who's using gear that you've worked on?" Henry says, that's true. All right, I accept." Gordy says, "Thanks. I really wanted to battle you. You know, since the champion endorsed you and all. Actually, there was something I wanted to ask you about once you were finished with your maintenance." True. Henry says, "Well, won't you get sick if I make you wait any longer?" "Oh, I know. Why don't you battle him, Marvin? Can you think of a better opportunity?" Marvin says, "Huh? That's really rude, no matter how you put it," right? But Henry says, "But we're going along with his indulgent whims, so that makes things even, doesn't it?" I swear, Henry can be brutally honest at times. Marvin thinks on this, and Gordy's just like over to the side. "At least whisper or something." Oh, but Marvin seems to be fired up, saying, "Gordy, is that okay with you?" Gordy thinks to himself, "Oh, he's really going to do it. Well, I don't know who's watching or from where, and I don't want to disappoint my fans if people spread lies about me online." Gordy says, "As long as it's fine with you, I don't mind giving you a workout." And he brings out his stone joiner. Gordy says, "I'm a rock type expert. If you got a Pokemon with a type advantage, feel free to send it out." Marvin says, "All right," and brings out his Drizzler. I keep calling it Drizzler. Drizzle is the name. Gordy thinks to himself, "Drizzle, a water type, huh?" And he tells Marvin, "Bring it on." Marvin has Drizzle use water gun, but it freezes midair. It's like those tests with the pasta, holding it up and it just freezes after a certain point. Marvin is shocked. "Oh man, the battlefield is disadvantageous." Gordy says, "As you can see, the air on Streamdrift Way nights is below freezing. Thoughtless water-type moves will freeze and fall before they reach Stonjourner. We're up next." And he has Stonjourner use Stomp. Drizzle manages to just barely get out of the way. As Gordy says, "Oh, dodged it, huh?" Marvin says, "That's a heavy, speedy kicking move. We won't have a chance if we get hit by that." Henry calls out, "Be careful, Marvin. Stonjourner weighs 520 kilograms, oh god, and kicking moves are his strong suit." Marvin thinks to himself, because its legs are thick, it can make stable kicks. I know, if we knock it off balance. Drizzle backs up. Marvin thinks to himself, with this much distance between us, there's no way that its kicks will be able to reach us. I'll have to move forward. Once it puts out its pivoting foot, and before it steps in, and Drizzle seems to understand what Marvin's getting at, despite the fact that Marvin doesn't really audibly say anything. But Stonejourner goes in for another kick, and Drizzle has put out several of its water landmines, which, turn into frozen marbles that Stonejourner slips on. That's actually incredibly creative. Marvin says, we did it. Oh, but Gordy has Stonejourner use Rock Slide on itself in order to put it back on its feet. Dang, Gordy is good. Like, oh, geez. This is probably one of the more creative battles in this whole thing. I guess because we're not just going with immediately into Gigantamax and Dynamaxing. You actually gotta be, more creative with the battlefield. Marvin is shocked, saying it fixed his stance. Gordy says, and up next, Heavy Slam. But before Stonejourner can stomp down, suddenly Stonejourner is hit in the eye with a berry? Oh, it's Casey. I don't know why I was blanking on the name. Casey and a Raboot. And she comes over the ridge screaming, hey, what did we ever do to you? Attacking us out of nowhere. It's super uncalled for. Henry calls out to Casey. Well, Casey says, Sword, you're busy with your gear repairs, right? Then leave it to me. She brings out the 3 second stage starters, saying, this is a triple co-op strategy. Listen up, everyone. Raboot, melt the snow. Heatwave. Twiggy, use branch poke on the ground. Drizzler, fill the holes with water gun. Okay, I'm actually curious what actually is going on here. Gordy is interested to see what's going on. And suddenly, Stonejourner is hit by something and knocked on its ass. What the heck? Gordy, despite being, a 3-on-1, Gordy says, bravo! Wow! And he shakes Casey's hand, saying, wow, you might have lost back in Lynnea, but I can't believe I got to battle with another endorsee. Waiting in the cold was totally worth it. Marvin, your battling was wonderful too. Marvin says, thank you. Casey, a little weirded out, says, what's going on here, Sword? Sword? What? Sword is, I'm not sure what he's doing, but I guess he's checking on the cane, and he says, the cane almost melted just after it finally hardened. I still can't get over how cute Casey's outfit is, though. Casey says, huh? And Marvin says, I'll explain, Shield. You see, and one explanation later, Casey and Raboot are given a bow, with her saying, I'm so sorry. I thought we'd been attacked by someone who was suspicious of us. With Gordy saying, no. Your passionate care for your friends blew away the cold. Casey then says, please say that to Raboot, not me. It felt something, then suddenly ran off when we were at the hero's bath. And Raboot's giving a little blushing smile. Marvin turns to Drizzler. Oh, right, that's his nickname. That's why I keep calling it Drizzler, right? Oh, no, Sniffler. I'm combining the 2 names. That's why I keep doing that. Sniffler. Marvin says, did that mean it knew that Sniffler was in trouble? And Casey says, wasn't it just perfect? Wasn't it timing just perfect? Gordy interjects, saying, I also, about the Route 9 tunnel incident, no one suspected it was your Dynamax simulator. There were Galar particles found all over Hammerlock, so they're saying that there could have been Dynamax incidents happening over there too, depending on the circumstances. Marvin says, oh, isn't that good news, Shield? Casey says, then I don't need to disguise myself anymore. That's a bit of a shame. She was having fun disguising herself. She fit in right in with Team Rocket, and Gordy then says, now, Henry, think you'll be able to battle soon? Henry says, sure. Casey, Marvin, could you keep an eye on Mr. Rhyme and his cane for me? Casey says, okay. Huh? Where is it? Henry says, huh? That's strange. I'd left it right here. Oh. What did the little, what are they called again? Eskew. A whole horde of Eskew have stolen both the cane and Mr. Rhyme's Pokeball. Marvin says, a waddle of thieving Eskew. Henry sends out his Grookey, or Thwacky, but the Eskew are playing keep away with the Pokeball and the cane. Ooh, Thwacky gets surrounded and flash frozen. Oof, and it's down for the count. As the Eskew are getting away, Henry says, my client trusted me with those. Marvin then says, let's chase after them too. But he sees that Shield is in a daze again. Why now? Marvin calls out, Sword, something's wrong with Casey. Oh, he left. Henry's off in the distance. He goes over to Gordy saying, what should we do, Gordy? Gordy pauses and then starts sneezing again. Oh no, he's come down with a cold. Ah, damn it, Gordy, I knew he was underdressed. You're not like the underdressed girl trio of Platinum and the gang. Marvin feels Gordy's forehead and says, oh no, you've got a horrible fever. It must be because you waited out here underdressed in the cold, then got doused by Sniffler's water gun. Okay, I think it's Sniffler. He and the other two starters help Gordy think, he's too big to fit in my sleeping bag or Swords. Reboot, stay here and warm him up. I'll call the professor and have her come to pick us up as they make their way into the tent. But as Marvin then peeks outside, he says, Shield's gone. Hey, what is going on here? There's way too much going on. What? This just felt like a random adventure, but things are getting kind of crucial. Then again, yeah, something goes on in the hero's bath, I think, if I remember correctly. As Henry observes the SQ, he thinks to himself, what are they after? What will they get from stealing Mr. Rhyme and his ice cane? They aren't turning it into a toy. It looks like they're handling them both with a lot of care. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. Like, it's like they're doing this with a purpose. Instead of trying to get them back, it'd probably be smarter to figure out where they're taking them, only for everyone to be startled by Casey loudly shouting for Sword, which scares away the SQ. Disappointed, Henry just calls out to Casey like, Casey. But Casey says, it's okay. I remember something after seeing those SQ. I know where they're going. I've been there before. Henry says, some memories came back then? Casey says, yeah, I think that's it. The place the SQ are heading to. It's where I first met Beta. All right, I forgot one of her Pokemon was an SQ. We see Magnolia's RV come whizzing by, and Sonia spots her saying, wasn't that Grand's trailing house just now? Maybe she's investigating the Gala particle leak. But thanks to that mess, my talk with Leon got put off. Once I saw his face, it felt like talking to him wouldn't be so scary. Honestly, I almost wanted to just let it all out. But I've got an investigation to focus on right now. The continuation of the 4 tapestries from the vault. The 5th one is here, in this restaurant. Yeah, that's right. That little side plot, which always kind of caught me off guard. Yeah, what was the restaurant again? Yeah, Bob's Your Uncle. I always kind of found it. It was such, because I remember that there was a plot relevant stuff in Sirchester. Not just the hero's bath, but it was something else. And there it is. Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's something specific you find out in here. And there's, I don't know, will they go to Hotel Ionia? I can't remember if there was something important there. I know that's one of the other major venues, and I can't remember if that really played a bigger part. And this is kind of fun. I'm glad we're starting to actually see more of what's afflicted Casey, because up until this point, it was like, okay, we've made a big point about something with Casey's memories at the beginning, but then it felt like we just kind of dismissed it, and I'm just like, okay, what did Casey seem to forget? Because she has so much knowledge, but it's just knowledge of Pokemon. Interesting, which explains why she would need a Pokédex, I guess. I feel like, I hate to say it like this, but the past few story arcs have made the idea of being a Pokédex holder kind of uninteresting almost. Which I hate to say it like that, but it's kind of like there was this legendary status when you were a Pokédex holder that seemed to kind of disappear around the time of X and Y. Because, you know, back with Black, White, Blake, and Whitley, it's like, oh, they're Pokédex holders. That was like the last big time where it was just like, leave it to the Pokédex holders kind of thing. But with Sun and Moon, and once you got to like the Rotom Dexes and stuff, it was kind of like, oh, you're just testing out this prototype for the professor of the regional area. It more lines up with the games, but there's almost a specialness that I feel like is no longer there in my mind. And I hate putting it like that. Like, it feels like a sucky way to put it, because they're still special, I feel, they still have special skills that really do, stand out and all that. And Henry is all about weaponry, and Casey is more so about like digital systems and all that. Or just almost like her specialty is Dynamaxing, but I don't know, it feels like now that she's no longer even involved with the competition, like how does that really come into play if she's not a Dynamax specialist? I don't know. Is she just that she's an engineer? Like the names they used to have had a little bit more relevance back when. Yeah, because Whitley was the Liberator, as Blake was the Arrestor, Moon was the Mixer, but the Sun was the Saver. But I don't know, the specialties seem to hold less and less of an importance over time. But then again, with gold status as the the Hatcher? Yeah, the Hatcher. It's just kind of like, well, and it's not like Gold always implemented his special status either. Maybe I'm just looking for something to complain about. I don't know, there's just something about how we look at Pokédex holders now that seems very different than how we used to. Like, having a Pokédex almost seemed to be like, oh, I have a badge, I'm a representative of the professor of this region. The respected professor of this region and all that. Unlike with the original anime, which, I mean, it wasn't like everyone had a Pokédex. To have a Pokédex meant that you went through a professor, but that seemed a lot more common in the anime. Whereas in the manga, it's just like, oh, they have Pokédex, oh my goodness. But I don't know. Something's kind of off about how we look at Pokédex holders now. But the story as a whole, I should refer to, it's still very solid. Artwork's still very solid. I don't know, it's like, I feel like I'm trying to find fault with this, but I don't really have an issue. But there is a feeling like something's off, something's missing, something's just kind of lacking from the storyline here. And I don't know what it is. That's it. Actual opposition. That's what's throwing me off. I finally get it. There's no real opposition. There's no real evil team to fight or like malicious entity, really. I guess that's because I know who Rose is ultimately deep down, and I guess that's the biggest kind of problem with Sword and Shield as a whole. Like, the malicious entity of the storyline, the series, ain't that really malicious. I mean, yeah, there's some things you have to deal with, but it's more of a, you really shouldn't be doing that kind of situation. And someone just really not thinking things through, which is a bit of a spoiler to the plot line. But I think that's it. Because it's like, yeah, you got this Chairman Rose and all the stuff he's doing in the background kind of thing. But knowing what I know is just kind of like, yeah, and like a lot of the opposition in Sword and Shield, they don't really rank up to the levels that all the other storylines have had. And even Team Skull and the stuff that was done with Guzma felt a lot more intimidating than anybody in this storyline. And the closest thing you get is Bade, and he's Bade. Like, he's intense, but he's not really dangerous. He's more of a danger to himself than anything else, which you kind of see with the whole situation with Raihan, Sonya, and Leon. So I think that is what it is. Like, we've had so many great storylines where the evil team was hunting down our heroes, or they were constantly an issue or a problem, or they did something that had such major ramification. Like, even when it came to Sun and Moon, it's just like a lot of the stuff that Team Skull did, it was kind of petty. Shoot, Guzma still friggin' broke Sun's arm. Like, that's a thing. Like, Guzma still broke Sun's arm. Like, my god. But I don't know, there's a danger factor that's lacking here, which is understandable, but it's also kind of a bummer. Like, we've kind of turned the edge factor of the manga, and we've kind of lost it a little bit. I mean, there's still danger from time to time, and it's not like it used to be, where even the trainer would be kind of caught up in things a little bit. And you'd still see that even in the Sun and Moon stuff. But here, it's just like, it's not really seeing it. But we're still fairly early in, so anything could happen. Even though I don't hate what the storyline is doing, the edge that the manga usually gave it isn't really there right now. Like that danger, like I said before, because with Sun and Moon, that danger was the Ultra Beast, Guzma breaking Sun's arm and some of the stuff he did, and then Baba, and then Luzmine, and just all that. X and Y, Light, oh my god, Team Flare. And I always thought they were dorks, but man, some of the stuff Team Flare did, my god. And then Black and White and 2 and all that with Team Plasma and the stuff they did. Like, oh man. Like, man, some of the stuff Team Plasma did. Time and Pearl, Team Galactic was so dangerous. Team Aqua and Team Magma, incredibly dangerous. And then all the machinations of Team Rocket over the various generations. Like, Team Rocket, just, and in the manga especially, watch out for Team Rocket, for the love of God. But here, like, and that has been the thing in the games as a whole. The evil team ain't really the evil team anymore like they used to be. There's no real threat like there used to be in the games. And that is a bit of a shame. Because, yeah, the antagonists were cartoonishly evil or way too over the top. But sometimes that was something that gave the storylines a little bit more flavor, Like, you go around beating down other trainers and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, hey, good game, all that. But man, when you beat down one of the evil trainers, like, yeah, take that. You're sticking it to the bad guy and stuff like that. Taking down people who deserve to be taken down. And when you don't have the satisfaction of that, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, Team Skull, you're a bunch of punks. Team Yell, you're just kind of jerks. But you're not bad people per se. Yeah, honestly, Team Skull and Team Yell, I kind of jived with more than anything else. I usually, when I could, changed out my outfit over to a Team Skull outfit, or a Team Yell outfit, or put on a Team Yell shirt or something. So, I don't know. And knowing what I know about Team Star, I think it is? Yeah, Team Star. Knowing what I know about Team Star, it's just kind of like, I can't really say too much about it. And just like, Team Star is kind of cool. If I ever get around to playing Scarlet and Violet, I'm probably good. But then again, they don't even really have a specifically cool uniform because it's just the school uniform. Man, it's a bummer. Evil teams ain't what they used to be. And the lack of them is really starting to kind of, even in terms of the manga, it just ain't the same. But, eventually 2 characters will show up in this storyline, and I'm looking forward to them showing up so we can put boot to ass, or belt to ass, I should say. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Sorry, I went on such a tangent with this. Even though I'm enjoying the story, it's just, there's that little bit of extra it could have, but it doesn't. But it is what it is. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until the next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you later. So then, take care. Bye-bye.